Good evening. This is Dr. Curry.
This is Kobe Owen.
And welcome to The Source. What an interesting week. We have a whole lot to cover today, Kobe, so I really want to get right to it. I'm very grateful that we didn't have any shootings that we are aware of or that was reported in the city this week, so I pray that things are getting better, but we want to just continue on with our news today. Our top of the news for the state, as opposed to the city, is what's going on in Indian River with the president of the Board of Education, not Board of Education, but the board down there. You ain't from around these parts, boy?
Yeah, so Mr. Layfield, who is also a state trooper, was caught on video during the game down there between Sussex Central and Hodgson. And he got in a confrontation with an African American male, and he decided to say that you're not. This isn't Newcastle. You're not from around this point. This part, boy. One, it's racial underlining there.
Yeah.
Two, he's a school board president down there for Indian River School Board. And three, he's a state trooper. Now, the interesting part about this, right, and this is what really upsets me, because Leah Board pulls into this too whenever there's any misconduct with an officer, that it's his fellow officers investigating him about this. Even though he's on video, even though they have him dead to rights, it's still them who are investigating them. And it's them who are going to decide if his words were harmful or racist. Now, who's investigating? The lead investigator is white. So again, we have someone who doesn't understand what's going through someone's mind when they hear a comment like "boy," when they hear "you're not from or this isn't Newcastle," right? So, this is going to be another underlying issue. But then the other group that's doing the investigation is Indian River, in which he's the school board president. He signs off on the checks, pretty much. This guy, should resign.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't resign, look, he is up in 2023. In March of 2023, we will make sure he is no longer on the school board down there.
But you said a couple of things that are very interesting. Number one, this whole notion of the police policing the police. That is just a problem within itself. Not understanding the sensitivity. When I read that article and I saw that he said you ain't from down here, but then he ended it with boy. That is more racist than any racist can be. But if a person have the same mindset, oh no, that's not racist, because they don't have the understanding, the sensitivity.
Right.
That those of us who go through this, it is a problem. It is a serious problem. But you said he is a state trooper.
Yes.
No, he is a state captain in the state trooper department. So that means he's not just on the street. He is one with some influence, and we want to know why we having so much problems and why we want Leo Boy redone and things of that nature. This is a good example of that.
Yeah, no, it is. And I think, again, you just continue to highlight the glaring issues and irregularities in policing police.
Yeah.
So, I think as we go forward, this still is an underlying talking point of why we need change. But also when it comes to Mr. Layfield, he needs to be fired from both the state troopers and removed from office from Indian River. And the only person who can actually remove him from the school board is Governor Carney.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So that's how that. So, and one of the things we're going to talk about in the show today is we are going to talk about appropriating who's responsible. Sometimes and I've watched our show, we've given the pressure on people who really can't do anything, especially when we talk about the schools. I'm going to talk about that later on. But in this case, then the pressure needs to be put on Carney to be able to say this is totally inappropriate. You need to be removed if he don't resign.
Right.
So I just want to make sure we're appropriately appropriating. So the question is then how much time do we give this individual before we start raising our umbrellas and our attention to this issue?
Right. I think we give them until the next school board meeting to address it there. There's supposedly let them do their investigation, let them present their findings and see what the actions are. If they do not recommend that he's removed from the school board side of things, then that's when you should continue to push for more pressure. Now, from the state police side of things, that's a little harder. It's more internalized, and it's going to take more work to get that done. And they have to go through multiple investigations, and I think the AG may have to get involved in order to present bias.
Now, don't you think that maybe we need to see that they are moving in that direction, though? I mean,
Yes.
I agree with you. The first part you did it very well. You said that, they can easily make that recommendation based on the insensitivity and racism that he has certainly
Hmm.
shared, that he should be removed. Case closed. There should be there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But then when we talking about him being a captain in the state police department, you're saying that there's multiple investigations that has to happen in order for that to occur. While I understand we have to follow the law, sometimes I get very sickened when we dealing with the law, because this is very overt.
Hmm.
This is very overt. But
Hmm.
but following that, so you're saying we need to just wait and see if or not they're going to lead in that direction.
Correct.
If we don't hear anything
Right.
that they are going to do an investigation, see whether or not he should maintain his position as a state police officer, then that's when we need to start raising our.
And I think we would be able to see that over the next 14 days, right? It's not going to be like a long, drawn out process of a year or something like that.
Mhm.
It'll be relatively quick.
Okay.
But paying very close attention over the next 14 days of where things are and where things are going.
Yeah, and before we go to our next topic, Kobe, I just want to say to those of you who constantly watch us, and then for those of you who are critics, that you have to pay attention to the fact that we live in a very insensitive state. There are some challenges that African Americans, Latinos go through that some who are not from our community don't understand. When this individual, now he's been very respectful, and I give Kobe credit for his respect that he is showing this individual who demeaned and degraded the African American coaches, but the insensitivity has to stop. We have to stop hiding behind, oh, he didn't mean anything. If you didn't mean anything, then you could have certainly said it in an appropriate way. We are teaching our children rigor in education.
Hmm.
We're trying to get them to understand that diversity is very important. But how in the world can you have the leader of the institution doing what he does
Right.
and saying that this is what we are really trying to embrace?
And again, Indian River has been in a hot seat a lot. They're the ones who wanted to go against Governor Carney's mandate on making sure that students had to wear masks in schools, teachers had to wear masks. They also went against the Black History in schools, which is a state mandate. It's a state policy now. They have been on the wrong side of a lot of issues. And I'm not talking about 60 years ago. I'm
Right.
talking about in 2021 and 2022. Especially under his tenure, they have led a very far right MAGA wing school board down there. And this, again, goes to highlight an area that represents minorities. You have people on the school board who does not reflect or do not represent those people. And this is, again, the importance of us getting involved with school board races,
Right.
right? School board has especially here in Delaware, we have 19 different school districts. And years ago, decades ago, the state decided to decentralize the power from our Department of Education and give the power to our school boards. So in order to really have equitable school boards or equitable school districts, we have to be voting in these school board elections. That's why it's so important when those elections, and they're up every single year. Most of them are nominating district, but if you live anywhere in a school district, you can vote. Others are completely at large. So people can be anywhere and decide to run. You can have people all from the same area, all from the same block, be the full school board. So look at where you live, what school district you are, and make sure you get involved. And it's the easiest way. All you have to do is prove your residency in the district. You don't have to register to vote. There's no deadlines, no nothing. And make sure you take your neighbors out, educate your neighbors, and make sure you all go out and vote. These elections are being decided by 50, 60 votes. That's very easily flippable.
Yeah, and I think what we're going to do is we're going to really pay attention. I did not I paid close attention to when you were talking about it earlier part of our time as the source, and I kept hearing you saying you need to get out and vote for these school district, school boards, and school board. And I was like, what difference does it make? I'm concerned about the mayor's office. I'm concerned about the city council. But in actuality, a lot of the decisions are made at that level. So I'm starting to respect that very highly. And I'm really, with this type of behavior, with this type of mindset, it is something that we really need to pay close attention attention to.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I think as we go forward, we will highlight even more once those elections come up. They're usually at the beginning, starting in March, April, May,
Mhm.
of the 2023. But every year it's around the same time.
Will the NAACP be a part of the or be at the meeting that they're going to have with the school board when that occurs?
Absolutely,
Because I think that we
absolutely.
really need to keep the pressure on that. And we're going to keep following it
Yes.
because it's going to become very important. And remember the Confederacy of flag. Also that Confederacy program. They got some money
Yep.
for them down there. So they're
Hmm.
trying to build a group, I guess, up that's going on. I'm gonna let it go, but I just hope and trust that we will follow this for real because this is
Right.
very serious in our city and our state rather. Also, let me just another article that came out this week, Brother Kobe, is the article where most people in the Delaware prison system come from poor minority heavy cities, and they talked
Hmm.
about Wilmington, Dover, and Seaford. As I read the article, I began to say, "Wow, this is really interesting," which is another undertone of racism, classism, and things of that nature. What is your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So one, um, it's not shocking, right?
Right.
We have it on paper now, but we already knew that.
Yeah.
Over 1% of the city of Wilmington's residents are incarcerated right
Wow.
now. And the next two blackest cities with Dover and Seaford, they're number 2 and 3, respectively, in this report of where the most people come from. Now, here's the thing: we know that our criminal justice system here is not equitable. It does not really seek justice
Mhm.
because if it did, then people, regardless of your race, regardless of your gender, would be charged at the same level of
Right.
things.
Right.
But it's not. See, it's more likely that a minority, black, brown, anything else, or someone who is low income
Mhm.
is most likely going to be charged for a low level nonviolent crime and get jail time compared to the person who is not a minority, can kill someone
Mm.
and get off because they have a high power attorney and because the judge feels defeated, right?
Mhm.
So it's or well, not defeated, but the judge feels as though they don't want to ruin their life. We've seen that multiple times, right?
Right.
We even saw that in the case of rape, with the UD
Yeah.
picture.
Yeah.
He was only given a few months probation so that his life wouldn't be ruined. Meanwhile, this same judge has sentenced countless
Mhm.
black people to jail for simple marijuana.
Yeah. That's the undertone racism.
Right.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, look, marijuana is not legal,
Mhm.
and I'm not justifying anything, but a rapist versus someone smoking weed,
Give me
a
the
small amount of weed, I'll take this person
yeah,
in my community
much quicker.
over this
That's
person.
right, because I have a daughter
Right.
and I'm very sensitive in that area.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's, again, as we continue
Mhm.
to push for criminal justice reform, and Senator Brown has been on the forefront of righting some of those wrongs that have been done to people who've been incarcerated,
Okay.
we still have a lot to do on the front end as well too.
Mhm.
That I'm going to be following very closely to see where this new group that's coming in, and by new group I just mean the whole new session, the 152nd
Okay,
session,
the session. Okay.
that starts in January 8th, where they want to go with this and see how far we can get, in righting some of those wrongs that have been in place for decades.
Well, you said something that again in the quiet storm today. We're gonna cover some stuff because what when you talk about that whole new session that's coming into play, it's going to be
Mhm.
important that we hold them accountable, not just one of them, but all of them, because
Absolutely.
Wilmington has some needs, and I'm
Hmm.
finding out we're beating up on city council, we're beating up on the mayor, and some of these things they do not control. We're going to need our legislators from this area to get down there and maneuver and do what they got to do. But we're going to talk about that a little bit later. So I don't want to use this time to do that. So in essence, this whole issue with the prisons population being overrun with those who from these poor and African American and Latino communities is sad.
Yes.
It's another area of oppression. And I'm grateful that Senator Brown and others are trying to work on it. But I'm with you on this one. Let's see how much help they get.
Yeah.
And let's see how far they get. And that should be the report card.
Yeah.
It should not be based on one item. It should be based on a plethora of items. You know, so I think that's pretty good. So I'm going to leave that there. We have so much we want to cover today, so I'm going to keep this segment short, and we're going to come back to the the corner with Kobe corner, and we'll be right back.
Good morning, E Zion Fair family. Here's this week's announcements. We Are One is back for their community basketball games. It's game time, y'all. Every Thursday and Friday at 6 p.m., We Are One is hosting their community basketball games. This week's matchups are as follows. Thursday, 9/29 at 6:20, Chichester versus Caravel. Thursday, 9/29 at 7:30 p.m., Sally's versus Bonner. Friday, 9:30 at 6:20 p.m., St. E's versus Appoquinimink. And Friday, 9:30 at 7:30 p.m., Sanford versus Leaguebound. These games will be taking place right here at the E Zion Fair Wholeness Community Center. For more information, please call 302-510-4548. Making a difference in your child's future. E Zion Fair Christian Community Academy is hiring. We are seeking full-time, experienced early childhood educators and a front desk supervisor for our Wholeness Center building. If you or someone you know may be interested in applying, please send resumes to personnel@ezionfairchurch.org. That is PERSONNEL@ezionfairchurch.org, or apply via LinkedIn at E Zion Fair Christian Community Academy. Please, no phone calls. Be a part of the growth happening at EFCCA today. Men's Fellowship is back. Join the Men's Fellowship for a Men's Fellowship breakfast on Saturday, October 1st at 9 a.m. Our speaker is our very own Minister Andre Hines. So let's come out to enjoy food, fun, and of course fellowship, and the Word. Bring a friend, and any questions, contact Deacon Tyrone Brooks.
Good morning, EFBC family. This is Brother Jay Morris, Minister of Music. To my brothers of EFBC, don't forget, each Wednesday we have rehearsal at 6 p.m. We're still building our 100 voice men's choir. Come on out. Fellas, I'm looking to see you there.
Join the Wild Women's Ministry Saturday, October 8th at 5 p.m. at Ramsey's Farm for our Fireside Sisterhood Fellowship. Food, hay rides, mazes, and more. Register at the Wild Table in the lobby or see Lady Rosa Curry for more information. The EFBC Warriors Cheer Team presents their first annual Cheer Expo, October 1st from 6 p.m. to 8:30. $5 at the door, and all kids under 3 are free. Doors open at 5 p.m. and no entry after 6:30. Come see the competing teams battle it out for that top spot. The competing teams are as follows. Christiana High School from Delaware, Camden High School from New Jersey, Hudson Votech from Delaware, and Brandywine High School from Delaware, with special performances by Steppers with Attitude from New Jersey, Shakers with Attitude from New Jersey, Phi Beta Sigma, Flex Cheerleading Team from Philadelphia, and Flex Expressions Dance Team from Philadelphia. The event will be taking place at our Wholeness Center Gymnasium on October 1st. Please come out and support your fellow EFBC Warriors cheer team. Join the Men's Day Committee for their Texas Row House fundraiser on Wednesday, September 28th from 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. The fundraiser is dine in or to go. 10% of your total food purchases will go to East Zion Fair Baptist Church. To show your support to East Zion Fair, present this flyer to the Bear, Delaware location at Texas Row House. Our Deacon of the Week is Deacon Gregory Daniels. If you need assistance, call the church at 302-652-9114, extension 110. Here's something to think about. The Bible may hurt you with the truth, but it will never comfort you with a lie. Now that's something to think about.
And we're back. Third time of the show. What's going on with Kobe's Corner?
Yeah, so I have a few things I want to talk about today, but first I want to talk about something that has made national news and also Delaware news, right? So on Monday morning and Tuesday morning, there was rumors that a plane was going to be landing in Georgetown, Delaware, being sent from Florida that was supposed to contain immigrants who came from Cuba. Now, that did not happen. But it's another political stunt done by Ron DeSantis in Florida and Governor Abbott, Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida and Governor Abbott of Texas, who have been flying immigrants to
And busing.
and busing them to D.C., to the vice president's residency, to Martha Vineyard, to New Jersey, to New York City, to Chicago, to blue states. Now, I was reading up on this because I truly believe it's human trafficking, right?
Okay.
You're taking people under false premises and moving them somewhere else, all for your own gain, right? And a civil rights law firm has actually filed a federal class action suit or as of Tuesday against Florida's governor, Ron DeSantis, who actually has a budget of $12 million. His GOP-led General Assembly allotted him $12 million to reallocate, to relocate immigrants all throughout America, right?
No, I thought it was all. That's the part they're gonna get them on. I thought it was just from the state,
Right,
and he's been doing it. He did that out of Texas, which we're feeling is illegal.
Right.
But they said from the state. I thought it was from the state.
right. So it's from he can use the money to move them from his state,
Right.
but can send them anywhere.
Anyway, there you go. All right, I'm sorry.
So what's been happening, transports anywhere from like 30 to 50 immigrants have been being dropped off at different locations throughout America. And again, this is a huge violation of human rights.
Yeah.
And honestly, at the end of the day, it's a disregard for another human being
Yeah.
to use them as a political pawn in this way. Now, we talk about this all the time, but they have taken it to a whole new level. And of course, they're going back saying we're just making a point of you don't want them in your neighborhood, but these communities have been welcoming people.
Yeah.
And I just want to say hats off to Delaware, because Delaware, not only did our state respond in a way that I'm proud of, but our community came together. We had hundreds and hundreds of people willing to open up their houses, willing to provide food, blankets, shelter, cots. One lady called me and said, well, I have 2 air mattresses. I haven't used them since the early 2000s, but you can have them if you need them. That is what our community is all about. Our diversity is our strength, and our unity is our power. And in that moment, we came together as a community here in Delaware and opened up our arms for potentially people who would have need help, people who would have they had no connection to people here in Delaware and would have needed a lot of help getting back on their feet.
Can I just say a couple things about that? This is your area, and I'll make sure we give you enough time to finish up your list. First of all, they're immigrants. And they call them illegals, but they're not. They have engaged the process.
Right.
America has a process that those who are running from all kind of things that's
Seeking
going on
asylum.
and seeking asylum, and they engage in that process by DeSantis and them flying them all over the place and busting them all over the place. They're going to miss court dates. They're going to create. It's going to create all other kind of problems for them. And I want to say to all of you who are watching, we really need to be sensitive to this, because they're following the process. They're running from danger. And even, people like the Republicans, most of them are immigrants too. They're from parents who came here and seek asylum as well. And I think when we are not sensitive to that's a problem. I'm just really concerned that we're looking at it as if, well, these are people who just kind of invade our country. It's only because they're black and brown. If they were not, if they were from New England doing this, it would have been not New England, but from
England.
from England, brother. They would have been a totally different picture, and I think that's just unfair. So I don't mean to go
No,
to
and I
the
think
area.
you bring up a very good point that I wanted to make sure I touched on. So, um, the people, right, who are seeking asylum, they have court dates, they have paperwork,
Right.
they have been identified by the U.S. government, they've been through U.S. Customs and Border Protection, right, which means they are not illegal.
Right.
They are here waiting a decision on their asylum case,
Right.
but this is literally what our immigration system is set up to do.
Absolutely.
And DeSantis knows this. Abbott knows this. They're not transporting people who are undocumented. They're transporting people who are seeking asylum. So, this whole political stunt is, again, just playing on fears of certain individuals.
Right.
And my biggest fear with them coming to Georgetown was someone seeking to harm them. Especially when you have so many insurrectionists
I thought about that too.
in Georgetown.
That could have been a setup too. I know,
Right.
I know you're a serious part of it, but that could have been a setup sending them to Georgetown, Trump country.
Well, look, you already have a racist police captain down there who's in charge of the school board as
Yes,
well.
yes,
So,
yes.
that's what I really feared for.
Yeah.
And I'm extremely happy at the response
Yes.
of the state, at the response of the community on this one. And it really showed us all coming together to make sure that people's human rights are actually respected and these people are given the dignity that they deserve. Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So my next point, anyone who knows me knows I'm very involved in politics,
Yeah.
maybe a little bit.
Just a little bit.
But I truly believe voting is our power and our voice. So earlier this week, a decision came down in which the vice chancellor of the Court of Chancery decided that our mail-in voting had to be stopped, right? It was unconstitutional. The Supreme Court, at the DOJ's request, requested that the Supreme Court put a stay on that decision so that the Department of Elections can continue to prepare ballots if they need to go out. But the Supreme Court's going to hear the case on October 5th. It's a very tight window because ballots are supposed to be sent out October 10th. So it's only a 5-day window of when ballots can start being signed out. You can still go online and request, but if the Supreme Court comes back and finds that mail-in balloting is unconstitutional, then you will receive a message that lets you know you have to find another way to go vote.
Now, let me ask you a question right there. So for the state of Delaware, unconstitutional,
For the state of Delaware.
not for the United States.
Right.
Okay. So there must be something in our Constitution.
It's our Delaware Constitution that's holding it up. Now, this challenge was done by Jane Brady, the former Attorney General and chair of the Republican Party, and Julianne Murray, the candidate for Attorney General for the Republicans this go round 2022. So there is a ongoing legal battle. It's going to be heard in the Supreme Court. Again, if you're not going to use that option, right, make sure you prepare to either early vote or vote on election day, and make sure your vote is heard. This is going to be a critical election because you see the tactics they're using right now to try to suppress the vote. They, in statements already, they said that in 2020, which is crazy to me that anyone thinks Biden wasn't going to win Delaware in the presidential election. But, some of the statements I've seen is that, in a city of Wilmington, they stuffed the ballots. In Dover, they stuffed the ballots. In Seaford, they stuffed the ballots. Now, if we go back to what we talked about in the first section of this show, with incarceration, what did we learn about those 3 cities? They're the blackest cities.
Yeah.
So they are trying to suppress the black vote. Even here in blue Delaware, the Republicans are fighting hard to suppress our vote. So I think, we have to be very vigilant, and we have to go forth in a way that makes sure that everyone's vote is is allowed at the ballot. And look, here's my thing. I don't care if you're a Democrat, Republican, Green Party, Libertarian, or anything else that's here on the ballot in Delaware. I still believe you deserve your right to vote. So, it's a tool for anyone to use. Just make sure you get out to the polls and vote.
Okay. Gotcha.
And then the last part of my section, I want to take a moment to remember someone who I considered a good friend, someone who was very centered on the community, very centered on building bridges, and really reaching out to everyone. And that is former Councilwoman Rashima Dixon. She passed away early last Friday. She was only 35 years old. And again, when you lose someone who has so much potential, it really hurts. And Rashima stepped down from council in January, and she wasn't always treated the best by other council members, but she never let that show. She stayed true to who she was and what she believed was right, and that was helping the community, regardless of where you're at. I can remember countless times I would show up to something and Rashima's already there helping people. One of my fondest moments with Rashima was when we had the flooding from Ida. She wasn't over there in her capacity as a councilwoman. Of course, she was going to help from council. She was just over there helping clean up. These people had just had their lives rocked by a flood, and she was over there scooping up dirt and mud and helping people move their stuff. She was someone who centered on how can we help the little person? How can we help the person who is not at the table? She was a public ally. She stepped down from council to focus on her business, which was expanding internationally into 3 countries over in Africa, and other cities and states in America. She had a broad network of people who, a broad network of people all across America that, they reached out to me once the news hit Facebook and social media, and they was in disbelief. There was a vigil held Friday evening, and you just got to hear from some of her closest friends, some of the people she had impacted, and some of the people who she may not have even known, but they knew who she was through her work. So the only thing I have left to say is you will be missed. Thank you for your service, and you was an embodiment of what it meant to be someone who truly cared and truly put the community first. To the Dixon family and friends, you're in my heart and my prayers as everyone continues to go through this time right now. And to everyone out there, be a little more like Rashima. Don't let the little things get to you, and continue to open up your heart to people in need.
Yeah. And I just want to add to I met Rashima when I first really it was during that time when I first we moved over here to South Bridge. My interaction with her was when she was working with the Hope Commission, and she was just in the community working. And I often had said to her at that time she wasn't interested in no office. I said, you need to run for an office. And she said, oh, no, I just like to help people. Genuine person.
Yeah.
Cared about people. Even her business reflected that. She ran and won her election, decided to resign because she was from that school. If I can't give it 100%, I would rather just move aside and let somebody else have it. What a gracious, kind person she was. And I don't say that because she's now transitioned to be with the Lord, but I say that because that is the truth. She was a kind person. So I hope that song that we've heard so many times, May the Work I've Done speak for me. And I hope and trust that for those of you who are watching, it's what you do between the dash that matters. And she certainly, while she only was offered 35 years of life, in her 35 years, she stood taller than most others who have had 90 years because she's made a difference in the communities that we serve. So also to the Dixon family, we extend our condolences to you. We'll continue to pray for you and for all of you who have been impacted by Sister Rashima, that you understand that we are praying for you as well. Thank you so very much. We'll be right back. And we're back. Well, Kobe, one of the things I want to do is in the Quiet Storm segment of this show, we've covered so much today. I really want to get in. I've received several calls and people were asking questions like, what is the difference between a red state, a blue state? What is the difference between the progressives, the moderate and the conservatives? And I think what we should do as a show, and let me be very straight with you, I am the preacher. Where your reason why your value is so strong on this show is because this is something you study. You are the nerd of politics, and I really want to make sure that our viewing audience get a chance to understand. They're hearing so much during this time of midterms and things of that nature. So a couple people wanted to know if you could just slowly take us through what is the difference between a blue state and a red state?
Yeah, so if you want to look at Delaware, right? Delaware is considered a blue state.
Yeah.
And we're considered a blue state. Traditionally, any state's considered a blue state or red state if you have a few things, right? If your governor's from the same party, if the majority party and the both the House and the Senate are all from the same party. If you look at Delaware, we have that. We're considered a super blue state because not only do we have a blue governor, a super majority in our state Senate, a big majority in our state House, Democrats also hold all 9 statewide seats.
Okay.
Now, you also have states like Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, Virginia, who are considered purple states. In those states, they may have a blue governor, a red senator, or 2 blue senators and a red governor. Could be a split house. They're flippable states. So you really never know which way they're going to go until you figure out where is the nation going, the overall, what's going on in the White House. That has a lot to do with how those states vote. Then you have red states like Utah, Idaho, North Dakota, South Dakota, that are completely red. But then you also have states like West Virginia that has swung in the last 2 decades from a deep blue state to a ruby red state, based off of lived experiences, ideology changing, and culture changing down there. So that's the gist of a blue versus red versus purple state.
Yeah, because oftentimes we hear that, especially on CNN and the various news stations that we watch, this is a blue state, this is a red state, this is a purple state, and it's good to know it's based on the leadership of the state, but more what's going on in the state, the ideology of the state.
Right.
Then after we figure out whether it's a blue, red, or a purple state, then we get into this whole notion of the progressives, the moderates, the conservative. You heard me say on the show many times that I was a conservative, but then when I realized what a conservative is, I'm thinking that it was one who is more fixed on certain things. But I don't think I'm a conservative. I think I'm more of a moderate. But tell us, again, what is a progressive?
Yeah, so a progressive is someone who is very liberal, on the ideas of what the economy should look like. Culture issues. They're traditionally more anti-establishment, and by anti-establishment, I mean they're not in the business of only calling out Republicans. They're in the business of holding Democrats accountable as well, too, right? For their wrongdoing, for their parts in certain policies. And I think when you do a deep dive, right, progressives have been on the forefront of pushing for criminal justice reform, seeing that we have a high minority incarceration rate, and it's not equitable in how our sentencing is happening, how people are being held for low-level offenses, and most likely they're a minority, versus their counterparts who are committing high-level crimes, getting less time so that their lives aren't impacted. You look at things such as healthcare, and one of the bills that everyone has talked about when talking about progressives is Medicare for all.
Right.
Now, most people didn't hear about this until Bernie Sanders ran in 2016. But if you look at the root of it, all the way back in the 1990s, it was started by the Congressional Black Caucus, who wanted to address the fact that minorities, especially Black people, are face biases and disparities in our healthcare system. So we should create a system that works equally and equitably for everyone, right? They understood how the insurance industry played in to the fact that Black people had worse health. Or were paying more money based on simply where you lived, or your family background, right? And things, another thing also is environmental. So progressives see that, we're at a point where we're almost to a point in time where we cannot return. The earth is heating up. We're seeing more damages, more once in a lifetime storms are happening annually. We're seeing flooding. Texas is freezing over. California is burning. They believe that we're at a point in time that we have to take action now on environment, and we can no longer wait, because once we hit that point of no return, it will be too late for future generations. They believe in more green and renewable energy rather than fossil fuels and stuff like that.
Gotcha. So if we were to sum up a progressive, don't let my definition be the definition. You give me your definition, but I would say that as one who is very much concerned about equality,
Yes.
and justice for all, as well as making sure that the environment upon which we live in is going to be around for our children to come. And sometimes those equality issues rub other people the wrong way,
Right.
Because they don't want nothing to change. They want things to stay the same. Well, what would you consider a moderate?
Yeah, so a moderate is someone who is still liberal, but they're also more conservative and business friendly, right? And by business friendly, I mean, I talked about environment and I talked about healthcare, right? So a moderate may come in and say, well, what about the industries? What about those jobs that may be lost if we shrink back, instead of thinking, how can we create new jobs? What about the people who are in the jobs, so that we don't have to retrain these people, or get new educations? Same thing with environment, right? So there are a lot of people who are in fossil fuel jobs, whether you're boiler makers, you work on plants, or coal mines. They want to make sure those people are protected, and also that a burden isn't put on a certain business industry. Now, I still, me personally, I still think that they're pretty liberal and more left leaning when it comes to culture issues, right? So, moderates, their biggest cultural issue is voting rights, right? Making sure people can go vote. They are more open to the status quo, and they're the ones who you'll see elect more of the people who've been there for a long time, been there, in some of these seats for years on end, and believe that, if we just keep giving them the resources they need, they'll be able to deliver for our community and build that seniority where whatever chamber they're in.
Okay. So I guess a moderate is one who kind of is liberal, but
Yes.
whereas the liberals are very focused on specific issues, the moderates are focused on those issues, but not to a level where we have to think about the ramifications of if we do it.
Yeah.
If we do it, then what about this and that and the other? So it's more of a it's not as specific, but it's more general. Okay. And the last one is the conservatives.
Yeah. So 2022 conservative Dem, right? Looks like a Joe Manchin, looks like a John Bel Edwards, governor of Louisiana. They're very skeptical of liberal views, but they're not fully sold on the Republican Party, right? So they're Democrats, but I don't mess with all those Democrats type of Democrat, right? They're also very, very conservative on cultural issues. They think, well, if you just pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you'll be good. We see them fight things such as social programs. We've seen Manchin on the wrong side of things like expanding the child tax credit, environmental issues. We've seen him on the wrong side of voting issues, voting right issues. They believe in the institution that has been established already, in the establishment. For example, Joe Manchin, Kristen Sinema, they believe that that when it comes to voting, when it comes to reproductive rights, when it comes to labor rights, that the filibuster is more important to keep intact than giving people additional rights or upholding and protecting those rights that are already been earned through the court system. So that is kind of where conservatives have gone. And again, you know, this slide is going to continue to change, right? These definitions could be completely different in 5 years and 10 years. So again, it's just being up on the terms.
Yeah. Now, there was an article in the newspaper after the election
Yes.
that talked about Delaware swinging more on the progressive. I've heard so many comments on this whole progressive thing because of what's at the front right now is climate control, the gay and rights, gay and lesbian rights, and a couple other items such as those. And they are feeling that the state is swinging that way. Why do you think? Do you believe that we're swinging more progressive, and why do you think we are?
Yeah, I believe, based off of 2020, what we saw in the pandemic, and a response from some elected officials, we're seeing more primaries than ever before. People are saying, look, I don't need a PhD in politics. I don't need to be a lawyer. I don't need to be a former cop to be in politics anymore. I believe that my lived experiences is enough to help me go down there and be a good legislator. And that's what you're seeing. These people, the everyday people, are winning. And that is less of a clear cut line of thinking. They're thinking from their own lived experiences of their neighbors, those single mothers who are getting elected, right? Who have a few kids, who understand what it's like for you not to eat, but your kids have to eat, and you got to pay the light bill, and you're worried about if your car is going to get repossessed tonight or not, peeping out the window. So those are the type of people who are getting elected. We have more diversity. We have more women going down to the General Assembly. We have more people of color. And people get upset about that. And they hear others talk about it and not truly understand the full breakdown of it, right? They say that the state's going too far left and, we're getting too progressive because more black people are down there. Well, no.
Wow, interesting.
More black people are down there, yes. The line of thinking has changed, right? And I'm saying, all the black people who went down there are progressive. We have a lot of moderate black people down in Dover right now. But if you think, I look at it this way, right? I don't know if everyone's progressive, moderate, conservative down there, but at the end of the day, if you think education and black history in our education system is progressive, if you think changing police reform and making sure people have body worn cameras, if you think having same day voter registration is progressive, let it be progressive. I could care less because it's opening up more doors for more people here. It's teaching that culture, right? And all those bills were sponsored by Sherry Dorsey Walker, right? From the city of Wilmington, the first black woman to hold that seat for RD3. So, at the end of the day, it really does not matter where it is. Me personally, I look at the policy and the impact it's going to have.
Right.
It shouldn't be, oh, well, this person's progressive, this person's conservative, this person moderate, I'm not going to vote for them or I'm not going to support their policy. It should be, what is the intent versus what is the impact of a certain policy?
Yeah. Well, and thank you for saying that, because at the end of the day, that's what we really got to start looking at. We have to stop this labeling. I did all of that education just now so that people can understand what the labels are.
Right.
But I think at some point we got to look at the policies that are being produced, and then we have to decide, is that who we want representing us, whether we vote against or vote for. And that's where we are leading up with this whole quiet storm, which leads me to the last part of this segment. I want to appropriate jurisdictional boundaries.
Yes.
Now, what I'm basically saying is I want to stop beating up the city council, which they have a lot of beating up they're going to get, okay?
Yes.
Because they ain't doing what they're supposed to be doing in a lot of areas. I want to stop beating up the mayor. If the mayor is not responsible, crime in this city, he is, because this is his city.
Right.
He has to come up with a plan. But there are some things that are near and dear to my heart beyond just the crime. Because I think if we get the education system set up right, the crime would go down. Now, one of the things I know is that the city of Wilmington has no jurisdiction over any of the how many school districts in this city?
5.
Over the 5 school districts in this city. Now, we hear council members saying, well, when I run on education, what are you going to do?
Right.
What are you going to do? You can't do anything but do a resolution, and the resolution can be passed, but who cares? I really want to now start and put on notice, because I know some of our elected officials who are statewide, they do watch this show as well. Put them on notice that we're going to start a report card and saying, are you going down the Dover helping our city? Education has to be priority number one, because I feel that with all this busing, parents not being able to get to their children, these buses are not showing up. The school, there is no high school other than Howard High
In this,
and in the city. This is egregious and preposterous. I don't want to do too much talking on it, but I want you to be able to share what you want to share.
no, I agree with you on this, and I think, talking about statewide, right?
Yeah.
I would be remiss if I didn't give credit where credit is due.
Okay.
It may have took a push from a lawsuit from the NAACP, but I think Governor John Carney and his idea of this Wilmington Learning Collaborative
Yes.
is one of the best ideas that we have seen in a long time of how to justify and not justify, but how to fit and kind of justify why it's so important to give some control back to the local level here in the city of Wilmington. It's no reason why we should be split up into 5 different school districts: Red Clay, Brandywine, Colonial, Christina, and the Votech School District. This collaborative, if done correctly, will give power to members on city council. It will give power to the school board members elected from the city of Wilmington. It would give power to those individual principals in schools to empower them to teach to the students, and then also to the community. Right? The MOU has it set up that a teacher has to be on it, a educator has to be on it, a student has to be on it, a parent has to be on it, and a community person has to be on it. So it gives the power back to the community. Now we got to make sure the right people go on it, right? But at the end of the day, whoever they hire to be, I don't know what the official title, executive director, CEO of this is going to be, right? That person is going to have to engage with the community outside of the collaborative as well too. And I think that's what the governor and his team are really pushing for. They have. I have not seen the governor work this hard for something in a long time. He has rolled up his sleeves. He is knocking on doors. He is talking to people, meeting them at their own houses. He's hosting a series of town halls, community meetings. The first ever school board meeting was held
Right here in Southbridge.
right here in Southbridge. So I think, he is trying. We got to make sure that the support is there as well too.
Now, the first thing I want to make sure we're clear on: will this die when he's gone?
No, and this is the reason why he wants to set it up the way he wants it to be set up. He wants it to live on after 2024.
Right.
And everyone knows he is term limited. He's done. Right. He can't be governor anymore. We will have a new governor, and then it's also on the community to make sure that that new governor is also accountable to the Wilmington Learning Collaborative, and make sure that if they're not, then we do everything to take away their power. So whether it means electing people who are supportive of him or them, because it is, Bethany's also running, or taking that power away and unelecting their key allies in the General Assembly.
Yeah. Now, reason why I brought that up, and I agree with you, and I'm going to say to Governor Carter, hats off, that he has really, I gave up our parking lot so they could just, he has as many people here as they can get here. But it does not really total. It's a start, and I want to start, and I don't want to start beating up the start. The start is great,
Right.
but this is the problem. I want to see our elected officials to put some stuff in legislation. Why do we have 5 districts here? I think that they can go down to Dover. They need to work up a plan. All of them, all of our elected officials, who are from the Senate as well as from the
House.
representative, the House. You need to. We need one district. You can call it back to the Wilmington School District, and we need a high school in this city.
Yes.
Okay, and I think that can only be accomplished through legislation. The governor's worked hard, and he is working hard. And I want this to pass because that's all we have for right now. But I think in order to hold people accountable, you have to put them back in the community that they are being held accountable to. Red Clay, Colonial, all of those, they service a broad range. But in legislation, we can change this. And I want to see our representatives do that for our children. I'm tired of parents crying and complaining. My child can't get to school. I don't have transportation. The bus did not show up. There was a fight on the bus. There's bullying on the bus. This whole busing thing, I'm going to get in trouble with some of my friends, but this whole busing thing is not for the 21st century. And that's how I'll word that. It may have been good for the 19th century or the 20th century. But for right now, it is not working because it is creating another level of discrimination and violence in our community.
I agree with you.
Oh, you agree with me?
I agree with you.
She was going to disagree on that
No,
one.
it does. It's we have a lot of work left to do.
Yeah.
So I think at the end of the day,
Yeah.
it's time to go back to the drawing board and see how we can really make this work.
Yeah, well, next week we're gonna come back and talk a little bit more about it. But I just want to say to all of our state representatives as well as our senators for the state, it's time to now address the education process in the city of Wilmington. And it needs, and one of the things I was upset about is that when the mayor does all of his needs to the governor, I don't see this need.
Yeah.
And I want to start saying that to whoever's going to run for mayor. I want to know what is going to be your ask of the governor
Absolutely.
for the city of Wilmington. We'll be right back. And we're back. One last thing before we go today, Kobe. We want to announce, we promised the community that we would share with the leaving of our dear friend, Brother Jay Street. We wanted to bring in a new person, and we thought long and hard who would be the person. One thing we did say, it had to be a female because we got all these brothers up here making all these comments. And we came up with a very good solution, and she has accepted. So we're grateful, and we are glad to announce to all of you that effective next Sunday, we will have a brand new co-host, and her name is Councilwoman Shanae Darby. She is going to be our new co-host for The Source. I'm looking forward, Kobe, to the
I'm
local,
excited for this.
because she's going to really be a part of the local part. You take care of all the political side. You're the guru in that area. Well, you grew in both areas, but I think she'll be able to help us in some of the trenches of this.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I think she'll bring a needed perspective to the show as well too. And you'll see a lot of debate, of thought, and just seeing where we want things to go.
Yes, so congratulations to Councilwoman Shanae Darby, who will be with us starting next week. I hope you'll tune in. Tell somebody, hey, we got a new face on there, and Shanae Darby, and I'm looking forward to her role in what we do here on The Source. Is there anything else on your agenda for today?
That's all I have.
That's all you have. That's all I have. I want to take this opportunity to thank all of you who watch us every week, and I say to you, thank you, thank you, thank you. This is Dr. Curry.
This is Kobe Owens.
See ya.
Take care, y'all.